I've travelled down to meet Rich Welfare, the spray coach, and also Trial Talk member Ewan. I'm going to be testing out some spray machines, never sprayed any plaster, always hand applied. So for the very first time today, I'm going to be putting on some spray plaster, see what all the fuss is about. We'll go and meet the boys. Good morning, Ewan.
Good morning, Stuart.
Good to meet you, pal.
Nice to meet you too, pal.
How long you been on the trail, bud?
So I've been on the trail now for coming up to about 3 years.
And what sort of work are you doing predominantly?
So predominantly using obviously gypsum products, you know, kind of skimming houses, your day jobs, probably typical to every kind of spread in the Trail Talk group. But I've kind of teamed up with Richard. I've went on his course because I want to leave that kind of traditional spreading to one side and kind of branch into your spray plastering and yeah, see where that can take me.
So far?
I'm finding it really good. Yeah, thanks, Stu. I think personally, I think it's the future. I think you know, it lifts that glass ceiling of how much you can earn. It obviously doesn't take as much toll on your body.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to kind of get this journey going and see where it can take me.
Awesome. What's it like working with Rich?
Horrible. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. No, it's great. He's a really, really good guy, and he's a great mentor to kind of have on board to teach you what you kind of need to know. And obviously, he gives you all his wisdom as well.
Hi, Stuart. Yeah, good to see you down here as well. What's the plan for today, mate? So we're going to go inside. We're going to test two of the best plasters on the market for spray plaster at the moment, which is the El Seco FX and the Bagard G. We're going to be running on both my machines, the APX and the Wagner 750. Two, again, are the best machines on the market. And I'll get you guys hands-on and see how you feel about the system. My first time spraying. It's your first time. You are a virgin to spraying, but it's not going to be that difficult. You're going to understand pretty quickly. After I give you a few pointers and tips, you're going to be putting muck on the wall in no time. Right, let's go and have a look. So guys, we're just getting set up on site. Again, Rich is going to give me a go on the spray machine today. I've just been talking about this product that we're going to be using, El Seco, and what I didn't realise is it's actually wet. So this stuff becomes ready mixed. It goes straight into this machine, and Rich has just showed me that this stuff was actually put in yesterday. And Rich, how long will that stay wet for?
That's going to stay as wet for as long as I need it to. Although it's not recommended, I take this machine from job to job, even with weeks in between, while it's just sat in there. As long as it's sealed, it's fine. It's air dried, so it's like putting it back in a tub.
Okay. And how long did you say it was in there?
I've left it in the machine for 3 months before.
3 months.
The manufacturers will probably tell me I avoided everything possible. But
the machine's still going.
It pumped the day I needed it.
That gives you a lot of flexibility, doesn't it? Compared to a product that you knock up and you have to get it on within 2 hours.
It's a stop-start system. You don't have to work to the time scale of the multi-finish. I can spray half a wall, stop, put the lid back on and go home. So,
fantastic.
You just use this just to close it?
Yeah, but instead of using these ones, I use them on the ceiling. As you know, they're extremely flexible. Too flexible.
Just talking to Rich about these trowels. Another interesting difference between spreading multi and gypsum plaster is the wear on your trowels, and you don't. These trowels are obviously these are quite new by the looks of it. Are these quite new, Rich?
Yeah, you never know, like it.
But this one here, I don't think is particularly new. But of course, because you're not hard troweling, and it's not particularly, I suppose, coarse, no wear on your trowels. So another little perk.
What's that there?
It's just a little clip that goes on the prime valve. It keeps it in place. it's really tight, isn't it? It's a tight coat.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
is there 2 passes then, 2 coats that go on?
Yeah, so once the first coat's been applied and you've just got it reasonably flat, doesn't need to be perfect at all, that's our left for the day, and then 24 hours later the second coat's applied, and any of these lines you see today, you don't need to perfect it because you'll get them out after you spray your second coat on,
Yeah.
and then you'll flatten it again, and then obviously you're perfecting it with the sand, right?
So no hard troweling, no cutting in?
No hard at all. It looks a bit transparent the first coat, it dries a bit firmer.
Yeah.
And then obviously the second coat, that's just like with paint.
Imagine me now as well. What I think is what I struggle to get my head around is. Imagine I'm trialing, right, using multi, bam, 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 and I'll put this section on, bam, bam, bam. I couldn't go straight away in flexi and close it in.
No.
I couldn't do that. So
And you said earlier about family emergencies, picking the kids up from school, and you can just down tools. You don't even need to wash your trowel. So you just down tools. You're in the van. I'll pick it back up tomorrow.
100%.
Whereas gypsum plaster.
And tells me that Morrison's have got a deal on celebrations for Christmas. I can go now and get it.
Or Yankee candles.
Yankee candles, yes please.
So what's this product, Rich?
This is the Bagar G. So we're testing El Seco FX and Bagar G today. But we're using the Wagner machine for the Bagar and the Graco APX for the El Seco. This machine can be a bit more temperamental, so I can just shut that off. If I shut this machine off, I can't just start it up again. I need to drop the pressure and start again and build it back up. Otherwise it'll trip out. So if I now very carefully remove the pressure, that's the pressure out of the system. But I need to now restart the process of setup to go again. It's not much, but it's just a difference in the machines.
And what are the cost difference between these 2 machines?
In full setup, that one can actually be quite a few thousand more because it's got a huge hopper setup. You can see today we're actually spraying out of a bucket, where with this machine it's an all-in-one. It's got a hopper built into it. It's got a bag roller built into it. But with this, the hopper that comes with this is separate. It's an amazing hopper. It's huge, but it's expensive. And combined together, that's a big setup. So that's amazing when you're doing like a big site or something like that. But this one, it's a bit of an all-in-one. It's all there for you. So it's preference really. There's more power in this machine, and if I was only doing jobs like this every single day, this would be the setup I'd be preferring to use. But again, because I have a varied range of jobs, the APX is just doing everything I need.
Okay. So this has just been sprayed on. Ewan's given it a quick trowel over. Now let's say that's finished. You've had 2 coats on there. It's been sanded back. You've had the lights on. It's all perfect. What happens if the electrician comes in and says, "Sorry, Rich, I was meant to have a light switch there. I need to smash a big hole in there." What happens? Is it a case of just patch it up?
Yeah, it's really forgiving. So a bit like when we spray, we can start when we want because the system blends into itself perfectly. So if, for example, there was a hole in the ceiling where we were waiting for some ducting to go in, but the guys aren't due for another month, does that mean that we can't plaster this ceiling? No. We'll plaster all the way up to where they need to work, and when they finish, we'll add the plaster later. So we can just keep blending in seamlessly whenever we need to.
Okay. Mentioned earlier, the skill set lies, let's say this was multi-finish, the skill set would lie in the hard trowel or the wet trowel, do you agree?
Yeah.
With this spray plastering product, where would you say this skill set lies? Is it having the right lighting, using the right grain of sandpaper at the
having
end?
the right kit, obviously, and having knowing the right techniques and methods, which are quite easily taught. The skill really lies in the person's ability for attention to detail, because anybody can spray and lay off a wall and give it a sand, and it'll look good to the eye. But if you want that next level plastering, you need to take that time, get the crucial lighting, and walk around and really go in on it and just really take your time. And that is a skill set. Because most people, it's a mindset as well.
So it comes down to the individual really and their level of perfectionism, really.
That's exactly it. Yeah, it is.
Now, what about set time? So with gypsum, we've got products like half time, extra time, for example. We mentioned about a patch there. We could think, okay, lob a bit of half time in,
we'll get it knocked out really quick. If you were going to patch that wall, do you then have to wait 24 hours before a second coat?
There is a timing, there is a stage, there is like a procedure where there's more visits involved. Time on the job is way less. But when it comes to smaller projects, time or the visits do increase more than if you had a traditional method.
Have you found any like hacks and ways that you can accelerate the setting time?
Yeah, I've got a heat gun before when I'm doing a repair like you spoke about. So I'll put the fast set compound on, I'll get a heat gun, I'll get it to go off, I'll put a coat of airless plaster on, another heat gun, and again another coat, so I know I can return the next day and just sand that repair.
Right, so if you finished a large project like this, the customer says, oh Rich, sorry, there's this cupboard that we forgot to include, can you pop back and do it? You could potentially come back and do it in half the time.
For that kind of scenario, I'll get my air fan out. This is an air dried product, so I've got a huge industrial air fan, and I will just blast it into the room once the first coat goes, and it will accelerate the dry time. So I'll be able to double coat it in a day, no problem. But I still need to return
to sand. Yeah. Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So bag gets thrown on top.
That's it, and just cut the top of him and wheel him off.
And the consistency is like sort of
the same every time. Yeah.
Now we use scrim tape when we're skimming. What's this stuff here, Rich?
Fibre Fuse Max. So
Fibre Fuse Max.
Extremely strong fibre tape, and it's crack resistant in multiple directions, and that's because of the blue lace and the angles that they're at.
Okay, so much stronger than normal
much stronger,
scrim.
Much flexible. Combined with a plaster on a timber frame construction, this is exactly why it's making it more flexible over all the system.
Okay.
It's components like this with the plaster together.
And that you've just used that on the corners, not the actual joints.
The main joints are just scrim. You can use this. I feel like it's probably overkill. Your main issues are where boards join in the corners, ceiling lines. So using scrim on the boards makes the process for a plasterer much quicker. It's more familiar.
And is this self-adhesive or bed it in?
No, this is bedded in. So my tapers did this with a bazooka. You can do it by hand. I can spray some product into the corner, push it in by hand, and use some basic taping tools just to line it in. You can do it all by hand, but there are tools that make the job quicker and easier.
Cool. Let's get some on the wall. Okay guys, Rich is in the process of setting up the machine, and I'm going to have my first bash at spray plastering on this wall behind me.